Welcome to the session 16 of the novel The Edible Woman by Margaret Atwood. In this session, I'm going to analyze chapter 26 and chapter 27. Chapter 26. Peter unlocked the glass door with his key and fixed the latch so that the door would remain open for the guests. Then they stepped into the lobby and walked together across the white tile floor towards the staircase. The elevator was not yet in working order, though Peter said it would be by the end of the next week. Each time Marian had come there, she had been able to notice a minor alteration. The lighting had been installed and was blazing now at its full core strength since Peter had turned all the lobby switches on for his 40. Marian said something came up and I have invited a few more people. It would not be a good thing for those people to arrive with Peter not knowing anything about it, though it had been a great temptation to say nothing, to rely on her ability to cope with the situation when the moment came. In the confusion, she would not have to explain how she had come to invite them. She did not want to explain, she could not explain, and she dreaded questions from Peter about it. Peter replied, "But I hope you did not ask too many. We won't have enough liquor to go around, and if there is anything I hate, it is a party that goes dry." Marian was relieved. She turned and saw herself reflected in the full length mirror on the back of the cupboard door. Peter had been so surprised and pleased. "Darling, you look absolutely marvelous," he had said as soon as he had come up to the stairwell. The implication had been that it would be most pleasant if she could arrange to look like that all the time. She had made her turn around so he could see the back, and he had liked that too. They were the only portion of her flesh that was without a cloth, or nylon, or leather, or varnished covering, but in the glass even, they looked fake, like soft, pinkish white rubber or plastic, boneless, flexible. Annoyed with herself for slipping back towards her earlier panic, she opened the cupboard door and to turn the mirror to the wall and found herself staring at Peter's clothes. Peter seemed to have everything well under control. The rest of the space was taken by bottles, bottles of beer stacked on the bottom shelf, tall green bottles of ginger ale, and short colorless bottles of tonic water and soda on the shelves beside the freezing compartment. She busied herself with the potato chips and peanuts and olives and cocktail mushrooms, filling the bowls and platters that Peter had indicated, handling the foods with the very ends of her fingers so as not to get her nail polish dirty. When she had almost finished, Peter came up behind her. She could feel him breathing down the back of her neck. "Darling," Peter said, "it is almost 0 hour, but before they come, I would like to get a couple of shots of you alone if you don't mind." "Peter," she said hesitantly, "I don't think. Could you just stand over there by the guns and lean back a little against the wall?" He turned the desk lamp around so the light was on her face and held the small black light meter out towards her. She backed against the wall. "And don't hunch your shoulders together like that. Come on, stick on your chest and don't look so worried, darling. Look natural. Come on, smile." She could not move. She could not even move the muscles of her face as she stood and stared into the round glass lens pointing towards her. She wanted to tell him not to touch the shutter release, but she would not move. "Oh, damn," Peter said. "Here they come." Marian came slowly from the corner. Chapter 27 Analysis. The first to arrive were the three office virgins, Lucy alone, Emmy and Millie almost simultaneously, 5 minutes later. Marian performed the introductions and led them to the bedroom, where their coats joined hers on the bed. Each of them said in a peculiar tone of voice that Marian should wear red more often. Each glanced at herself in the mirror, preening and straightening before going out to the living room. "I am so glad you could all come," Marian said. Peter had put a record on hi-fi and the room was noisier and more crowded, and every time they saw another successful and glittering wife step into the room with a sleek husband, they turned back, a little more frantic, to their drinks and their interchange of strained comments. The door opened again, and Clara and Joe walked into the room along with Len. Marian's nose twitched, and one of the cocktail mushrooms fell from the plate she was carrying, bounced along the floor, and disappeared under the Wi Fi set. Marian clamped her hand firmly on Clara's coat sleeve and ushered her into the bedroom. I hope you don't mind us bringing him. I didn't think you would because, after all, you were old friends. But really, I thought we would better. We did not want him going off somewhere alone. He told us in incoherent story about some women he has been having trouble with. It sounded quite serious, and he said he was afraid to go back to the apartment. I don't know why that could anybody do to him. So poor thing, we are going to keep him in that back room on the second floor. Marian had a fleeting vision of large globular pastry decorated with whipped cream and maraschino cherries floating suspended in the air above Joe's hand. Marian turned to look at Clara, where she stood talking, dressed in simple beige, her hair a delicate pear pale yellow. She wondered whether Joe had ever told Clara her core had been destroyed. Yes, she watched Clara made an emphatic gesture with one of her hands, and a soap voice stepped back, looking shocked. Marian looked up at Joe with an affection, the precise flavor of which was blurred by the drinks she had had. Behind Joe's back, the door was opened, and Ainsley came through it. Excuse me, Marian said to Joe. She set the olives on the I-5 set and went over to intercept Ainsley. Ainsley said breathlessly. Marian hurried her into the bedroom, hoping that Len had not seen her. Ainsley, she said when they were alone with the courts. Len's here, and I am afraid he's drunk. Ainsley unswathed herself. Really, Marian, it does not matter to me in the least. But, said Marian, he seems quite upset. There is no reason at all. Ainsley said lightly, why I should even talk to him. When Ainsley appeared, there was a general surge towards her. Some of the soapmen predictably deserted their side and came to be introduced. And the corresponding wives, even alert, rose from the sofa and took rapid steps to head them off to the pass. Ainsley smiled vacantly. Marian watched Len. She thought he was going to hit Ainsley, but instead he smiled, showing his teeth. He shot out one hand and grasped Ainsley's shoulder, lifted his beer stain, and poured its contents slowly and thoroughly over her head. As the last of the suds were descending, Peter came charging in from the bedroom, jamming a flash bulb into his camera. He looked as though he had only an imperfect idea of what he had just done and no idea at all of what he was going to do next. Someone had cleaned the broken glass and beer off the floor, and in the living room, now the currents of talk and music and drink were flowing as again, though nothing had happened. It looked as though it had been hit by a flash flood. She went to the doorway and leaned in it, gazing out over the room. Peter was among them too, the real Peter. The one underneath was nothing surprising or frightening. Only this bungalow and double bed man, this charcoal cooking in the backyard man. She traced through the time, the corridors and the rooms, long corridors, large rooms. If that is who Peter really is, she thought, walking along one of the corridors, will he have a pot belly at 45? She opened the door to the right and went in. There was Peter, 45, balding but still recognizable as Peter, standing in the bright sunlight beside a barbecue with a long fork in his hand. She looked carefully for herself in the garden, but she was not there, and the discovery chilled her. No, she thought this has to be the wrong room. She walked across the lawn, passing behind the unmoving figure, which she could see now held a large cleaver in the other hand, pushed open the door, and went through. She was back in Peter's living room with the people and the noise, leaning against the door frame, holding a drink, except that the people seemed even clearer now. more sharply focused, further away, and they were moving faster and faster. They were all going home. A file of soap women emerged from the bedroom, coats on. They teetered jerkily out the door, trailing husbands, chirping good nights, and who was that tiny, two-dimensional? Before she had wondered what their bedroom would look like after they were married, trying out various arrangements and color schemes. Now she knew it would always look exactly like this. She dug among the coats, looking for her own, and could not for a moment remember what it looked like, but at last she recognized it and slipped it on. In the living room, Peter was calling above the noise, "Come on now, let us get a group portrait." Now there was a living room to negotiate. She took her coat back off and bundled it under her left arm, counting on her dress to act as a protective camouflage that would blend her with the scenery. Staying close to the wall, she made her way towards the door through the thicket of people, keeping behind the concealing trunks and bushes of bags and skirts. Peter was over the other side of the room, trying to get them organized, then pausing only long enough to get her coat on again and to pick her overboots out from the tangle of trapped feet on the newspaper. She ran as fast as she could down the hallway towards the upstairs, running along the street, the snow squeaking under her feet as quickly as her empowered legs would move, balancing with the ice on the sidewalk. In the winter, even level surfaces were precarious. She couldn't afford to fall down. Behind her, even now, Peter might be tracing, following, stalking her through the crisp, empty streets as he had stalked her guest in the living room, waiting for the exact moment when she had recovered her balance. She looked behind but found no one. Thank you for watching the video.